Welcome into the Autzen Audibles podcast. I'm Matt Prehm, Jared Mack on the show on this Monday edition. The mailbag will be on Thursday because we've got baseball to talk about. Jared's got full coverage of it on duckterritory.com, but we did a podcast last week previewing the Nashville Regional. The Ducks were the 2 seed after winning the Pac-12 tournament, and I think a little surprise to everybody. Oregon went 3-0, emerged out of the Nashville bracket as the champions, goes to the Super Regionals now with an opportunity to host. We'll get to that later. But Jared, Oregon, you covered all three of these games. They won 5-4 on Friday afternoon against Xavier. They beat Vanderbilt 8-7, and then Sunday evening, after a long delay, 11-2, just a dominating fashion of a victory over Xavier a second time to punch their ticket to the Supers for the first time in 12 years or something like that?
11 years. First time since 2012. And then before that, it would be only the second time since 1954. So this is an impressive 3-game set in the Nashville Regional. On last week's podcast, we talked about how Oregon, there were some lucky moments, and baseball always has lucky moments, but there were some lucky moments in their Pac-12 tournament victory, specifically against Cal in the late stages of that game, where their shortstop makes an error and allows Oregon to score the tying run, and then the go-ahead run was a sacrifice fly just a batter later. And then obviously the Stanford relay, where Stanford, an extremely well-disciplined and well-coached team, probably converts that relay, 8 out of 10 times. And this time they airmail it and allow the tying run and Colby Shade to come around third and score on his triple. So you had those lucky moments in the Pac-12 tournament, and Oregon sure as heck took advantage of them and won the whole damn thing and moved into the postseason as a 2 seed. There were no lucky moments in this Vanderbilt regional, or this Nashville regional, I should clarify. This was just pretty much an encapsulation of what this team has been all season long, which is a fantastic offense with some decent pitching. And that's exactly what happened in these 3 games. Offense came alive multiple times throughout the 3 games. Against Xavier in the first round, it was kind of died down, but they came up with crucial hits and big hits. Veteran guys like Drew Calley and Tanner Smith led the way. Gavin Grant had his own moments as well, but pitching continued from the Pac-12 tournament, this bullpen by committee type, where guys really weren't going to throw more than 2 innings. And even if they did that, it was going to be 1 2/3, maybe even 2 innings. But head coach Mark Wasikowski and pitching coach Jake Angier kind of kept everybody to a minimum. Tried to keep pitch counts under 50, try to get them to be able to go again either tomorrow or the next day, which is exactly what happened against Vanderbilt and then against Xavier again. In the game 2 matchup against Vanderbilt, it's a hostile environment. It's not a whole lot of people that fit in Hawkins Field, but the Vanderbilt Whistler is there. People were not too happy about him in the message board and on the Twitterverse, but we knew he was going to be there, and Oregon just took it to him. Jacob Wallace with a bases clearing double. I think that was in the 5th or the 6th inning, gives them an 8-4 lead or 8-5 lead. Even though Vanderbilt hit that 2-run home run in the 9th inning against Molaris, that game didn't really feel like it was that close for a long time. And Turner Spoljaric had probably the start of his career, just a week removed from the previous start of his career in the Pac-12 championship game against Arizona. This was just a moment. These 3 games were all a bunch of moments for players to step up in big-time opportunities. And basically all of them did. And the championship game encapsulated that even more with Riku Yoshida's 3-run double, with Drew Calley's 3-run home run, a 6-run 6th inning, just put them ahead for good. And a sweep of a Nashville regional is very impressive. There are only a handful of teams to sweep this postseason, and 2 of them weren't even the number 1 seed in the regional, just like Oregon was. So it's going to be really impressive, and it's important that Oregon now gets to host at PK Park for this Super Regional.
I was going to say, is that confirmed? Is that official now?
Yeah, I reached out to somebody in the Oregon baseball world that if the Emeralds, the Eugene Emeralds, the minor league team that plays at PK Park, that they have an upcoming weekend series at home this upcoming weekend. And I said, is this going to impede or be an obstacle for Oregon in any way of hosting a super regional? My response was 2 letters, N and O. So they're good. And that's because Oregon, the university, owns the field. This is the Emeralds play at Oregon's field. Oregon does not play at the Eugene Emeralds field. So I think that's going to be, I think you'll see an announcement from the Emeralds at some point this week that they're moving their series up to Washington and that Oregon will be playing at PK Park for the Super Regional.
Yeah, so fans, get your tickets ready. PK Park's going to be buzzing. It's gonna be packed.
Mm-hmm.
Weather's going to be great this weekend. I don't know if we know the dates of the games yet.
June 9th,
Thursday.
June 9th is the start.
Yeah,
and it'll be a 3-game series. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, potentially.
So weekend plans at PK Park. You talked about the pitching, and you watch the games against Xavier, especially the second one in the championship game Sunday night, and you said it on the podcast a couple times this year. I think last week you even said it, like their strength of their pitching is their bullpen, and that is where that game was won. I felt like watching it. They threw out Grinzel. He's not like a normal starter. He pitched 4 good innings. He had 7 strikeouts. And Xavier, they just didn't have the depth, and they got tired. The pitchers got tired, and once they started, making some mistakes, that's where the errors happened. The overthrow from catcher to short on a steal attempt by Oregon that got into the outfield, which scored, I think, 2 runs. Then they hit like a bomb out to the outfield for a double. The depth of Oregon's bullpen's showing up, and do you feel like that will be again a strength for them on Saturday or Friday, Saturday, Sunday against Oral Roberts, or are we starting to run into the caliber of opponent where they're gonna need these these guys that they throw out as starters to go deep into the heart of the lineup?
Well, we'll get into Oral Roberts in a bit, but a lot of people have an issue with how the regionals are, what their I guess their schedule system is, because no college baseball team has the depth to overcome the consecutive games. But one of the perks of winning your first 2 games is you do not have to play a doubleheader on Sunday. And Xavier had to play a doubleheader on Sunday. And not only did they have to play a doubleheader, they had to play against Vanderbilt, who is one of the few teams in the country coming into the NCAA regionals that probably have the depth to withstand a 3-game set in 3 days. They've got great starting pitching and they got a great bullpen. So Xavier used up, again, their 2 starters for the first 2 games against Oregon and Eastern Illinois, and Alizis and Bosacker used their 3rd starter against Vanderbilt yesterday before the Oregon game. So Xavier just ran out of gas, like you said, Matt, because their team had ran out of gas. Not only did they play a 9-inning game before, but they also had a 4-hour delay, a lightning delay in between. The top of the 9th inning was their lightning delay.
Brutal.
So that was, it was tough timing for them. Then they had to wait. I think it was a 55-minute grace period before playing Oregon. So you kind of saw them tail off in terms of their in fatigue and energy towards the end of the game, and especially when Oregon and Riku Nishida hit that 3-run double. That was kind of the final nail in the coffin. But to go back to Oregon, their bullpen has been, during the regular season, was pretty good. There were moments of clarity. There were moments of opportunity that was seized by young freshmen or guys who moved from the starting rotation back to the bullpen and yada, yada. But their bullpen in the Pac-12 tournament and obviously this Nashville Regional has been their only real means of pitching. Jay Stoffel's been out for a while now. Isaac Ayon obviously hasn't pitched all season long. Oregon has really gone away from using Leo Ullman, Jackson Pace, and Matthew Grabman. They're 3 true freshman starting pitchers. They're running a bullpen of six to 8 guys basically every 2 days, and it's good. It's like 4 guys pitch one day, 4 guys pitch the next day. And today was the first half of the 4 guys. So Grinzel throws 4 innings, a career high, strikes out 7, a career high. look, he's a true freshman, so he's going to struggle with command at points. I think he had 2 or 3 walks, and his pitch count hit 86, 88 in 4 innings, which isn't the best, but he's got great extension. He's got great stuff. He kept the ball low in the zone. He kept his off speed low in the zone, which is incredibly important for him. His curveball was working at point. Xavier, just the mix and match and the pitch calling, the Grayson's ability to throw his off speed for a strike too, really disrupted the Xavier hitters. They were late on fastballs. They were really early on curveballs. They weren't looking for one pitch and then they would get another pitch. It was just really great pitch calling and pitch sequencing by pitching coach Jake Angier. And Grayson just executed it. And then Ian Umlaut comes in, guy who is seldomly used during the regular season, does his job. Logan Mercado comes in after starting on Friday, gets the final 12 outs of the game. Just a really good pitching performance. And I said on the podcast last week that, if Oregon's pitching staff keeps the opponents between like a 2 to 6 range of runs allowed, that Oregon's offense would be able to come through and probably score more than 6 runs and put them ahead or keep them in the game. It's just what the pitching staff is going to do, and that's what it has been all season. It's just there's no Jay Stoffel, and when Stoffel was in the rotation and things were going good, I think people forget, but this was a very good ball club. This was a team that won 16 out of 20 at one point. This is a team that was ranked near the top 10 at one point, easily within the top 15. This was a very good ball club when just Jay Stoffel was on the mound, and now they're kind of replicating those stats, but through multiple personnel. And the offense is continuing to click. You're seeing guys like Drew Cowley step up. Sabine Ceballos hit an absolutely monstrous home run last night in the championship, in the final game. That's what this team has done all season. They have multiple guys who could carry the whole offense on their back. And now that the pitching is coming through, this is a dangerous team, just like it was earlier in the season.
What's the status with do we know of anything with Colby Shade against Vanderbilt Saturday night? He took a pitch that hit the bone in his wrist and somehow didn't get awarded a base. And then 2 pitches later took one off the elbow guard that he has, which got him on the base. But then he hits number 2 in the lineup, center fielder. He did not play in the field. He did not bat against Xavier Sunday. Bryce Botcher got the start there in his place. He did get onto the field as a pinch runner, but it was clear he had an air cast or some kind of sleeve on his wrist. Is that cause for concern? Do we know anything there?
I do not know anything. I didn't reach out to people yesterday. I should probably reach out to people today, just because the game ended so late and they were celebrating. But no, he got hit in the wrist. If everybody wants to go down and feel their wrist right now, there's not a lot of padding, aka not a lot of fat. There's basically bone and whatever muscle you got right there. So Shade took a fastball to the wrist. It probably really hurt. I think the fact that he came into the game as a pinch runner and as a defensive sub in center field was encouraging. Does it mean he's fully healthy? I don't know, but he's got a couple of days to rest up. And we didn't see him swing. We probably weren't going to see him swing if his spot in the lineup came up. I'd imagine that he would just bunt it. Wrist injuries are difficult to deal with, especially on a lead wrist for a right-hand hitter. But I don't think it's too much cause for concern. You see Bryce Betcher, he makes every play in the outfield. He gets on base 4 times. He draws 3 walks and a hit by pitch. I'm not saying that Bryce Betcher can replicate what Colby Shade does at the plate, but I think it's fine. I really wouldn't be too concerned about Colby Shade's availability. I'm sure we'll get to talk to head coach Mark Wasikowski at some point this week. That'll be one of the pressing questions I have for him. So we'll figure that out probably pretty soon.
Before we go to break and we kind of wrap up the Vanderbilt side of things, the Vanderbilt Regional side of things, Nashville Regional, whatever we want to call it, just what were your overarching takeaways? Because I asked you, did you think Oregon was going to win? And you weren't sold that Oregon was going to be able to get through all these games victorious. I think you said they have the ability to do it, but the teams that they're playing, it was a tough region. They did it. Mm-hmm. So I guess just looking back at the 3 games that they played, just what does this win mean for this program? What does this take away? And then we'll take a break and go to Oral Roberts.
For the program, it's ginormous. Look, Oregon has been a good baseball program the last couple of years. This is 3 straight regionals they've been to. This is the first time they've gone to a super regional under head coach Mark Watzkowski. 2020, it was the pandemic shortened season. They only played 15 games, so that one doesn't really count. But, they were the 2 seed in the Pac-12 in 2022. They were the 3 or 4 seed in the Pac-12 in 2021. They hosted a regional. They lost to LSU. Last season, they go to Louisville. They put up a heck of a fight, but they fall short again. For Oregon to finally get over that hump and kind of showcase themselves, by the end of the day today, on Monday, they could be the only Pac-12 and a team in a super regional. And, Stanford still has an elimination game against Texas A&M later today. I don't think a lot of people had that on their bingo card. And this is a better Pac-12 than it has been in years past. Usually there's 3 or 4 teams that are head and shoulders above the rest. This year there are probably 5 to 6. Even though Oregon really faltered towards the end of the season, they were certainly among the group for the longest period of time. It's huge for the program. And it also showcases that, Oregon's set up for the future as well. They talked about that on the broadcast a lot. I've talked about that on this podcast before. They signed a top 5 class in the country. This is just more national publicity. They get to showcase how they develop talent, how true freshmen have come in and earned playing time and pitched right away or hit right away. How their true freshmen last year have developed into sophomores and juniors and seniors and years past that. Overall, I'm happy for this team. They certainly went through a lot of down stretches, especially against Washington and USC, where they were completely outmatched on the field, and it didn't really look like they had that same fight in them that they had before. This is now a 9-game winning streak to end the season, similar to college basketball. Sometimes the hottest team in the tournament does the best. And in this Nashville Regional, every team was a conference champion. They all won their conference tournaments. They were all basically like the hottest teams in the country, or some of them. And Oregon reigned victorious. I thought it was a really impressive and gutsy effort put together by the staff, by the players themselves. And now it moves on to Oral Roberts. And, Oregon's going to have an opportunity to go to the College World Series, go to Omaha, again, for the first time since 1954. That's pretty darn impressive. And against Oral Roberts, we'll get to them in a second. But I guess the main takeaway from the Nashville Regional was I was just impressed with the team's fight. They had that, I guess, for lack of a better phrase that I can't think of at the moment, they had that dog in them. They had that dog in them the whole Nashville Regional. That was what was on this team earlier in the season when they nearly swept Stanford, when they took down everybody at home during that 16 out of 20 win streak. They had lost that the last 3 quarters of May, and then regained a little bit of it in the Pac-12 tournament, and slowly, exponentially grew up with more dog in them towards the end of that tournament. And then it all came out this past weekend in Nashville. And I thought it was just a dominating performance overall. So they got that dog in them. We'll see how that translates into this upcoming weekend against Oral Roberts.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into Oral Roberts and how they got here, and they'll preview the matchup between the Ducks and the Golden Eagles. All right, welcome back to the Odds and Audibles podcast. Matt Prehm, Jared Mack on the show today, and chaos has kind of hit this side of the bracket because Oregon was the 2 seed in the Nashville Regional. Oral Roberts was the 4 seed, the lowest seed in the Stillwater Regional. And I think they became like the 8th school in NCAA history to get through their regional as the number 4 seed to get to the Supers. And they also swept their way through Stillwater. They beat Oklahoma State 6-4 in the Friday matchup. And then in the winners bracket, they beat Washington 15-12. And then they beat Dallas Baptist in the championship, who was, I believe, the 3 seed in the regional, 2 seed. And they beat Dallas Baptist 6-5 in Game 6 to get the sweep. This is another team, Jared, you talked about Oregon being hot, and sometimes in these tournaments, it's not the best team, it's the hottest team. This is another one. I think they've won 20 or 21 straight games in a row coming into the Super Regionals. They won the Summit League Championship 12-0, and they won the semifinals. Or no, they didn't win that one 12-0. They won 12-4, excuse me. And then the semifinals, they also won 15-2. This is a hot team, but can pick up a lot of numbers. What do we know about Oral Roberts and their baseball program?
I mean, is one of the better teams in the tournament. I kind of felt that way going into the Stillwater Regional. This is very, how should I say? This is very typical of the NCAA baseball tournament. To have a team that is this good in the Summit League. I mean, they're 49-11 now. They were 23-1 in conference. It's a damn good baseball team. They just don't play the same type of competition, quote unquote, at least on paper, as a team like Washington, as a team like Oregon, or take your pick of whatever SEC team you'd like to. And so they're just not going to be as respected. It's like Campbell being the 2 seed in the Auburn Regional and Auburn getting to host. Like Campbell was clearly the better baseball team, but Auburn gets to host because they're an SEC team and have a better RPI because they play better teams. And this ORU team, this Oral Roberts team is no joke. I mean, they've lost twice since April 1st. That's like, 7 weeks of baseball. And those two losses were on like April 3rd and April 5th. So it's been a long time since they lost a baseball game. Yeah, their 21-game win streak. That's pretty good. I mean, you went through the scores of the Stillwater Regional. They took down OK State 6-4, then Washington 15-12, 6-5 against DBU. Those were all pretty close games. I think that's kind of telling that the competition did, intensify. And Washington, they don't have a pitching staff, so it's just going to be a slugfest anytime you face the Huskies this season. And for it to be 15-12, I would consider that to be pretty good. But this lineup for Oral Roberts is pretty terrifying. They're a damn good hitting team as well. Jonah Cox leads the way. It's 424, an 1100 OPS, 10 homers, 65 RBIs, and then Matt Hogan, who I've seen on Twitter. When he hits a home run, they call it a hoagie, and I really like that. That's hilarious. But he's got 17 hoagies this year. His OPS awesome. Is also above 1100. 687 slug. He's got 47 walks to 62 strikeouts, which is a pretty good strikeout to walk ratio. 8 of their top 9 hitters are their regular everyday guys. They hit over 300. They all have an OPS over 800 or 850. It looks like. Even their worst hitter, but statistically, Drew Stahl is 275 with an 889 OPS, 11 bombs. Like, this team is going to hit.
They got power.
Again, some of those numbers could be inflated because of the competition they play in the Summit League. I don't buy it. I watched them play basically every single game of the Stillwater Regional. Those guys know how to hit, and it's no surprise. Well, it is surprising that they went 3-0. It's hard to go 3-0 at all, whether you're a 1 seed, whether you're a 4 seed, or whatever the case may be. So that was surprising. But to see them put up a fight and an effort like they did, not surprising at all. And then pitching wise, this is a good staff. They got a lot of good guys in the bullpen as well, specifically Cade Denton. He's been an absolute animal. He's got 31 games in the season, 54.2 innings pitched, a 1.65 ERA and a 0.88 WHIP. He's just been tremendous for them out of the back end of the bullpen. He closed the game last night against DBU. He looked basically unhittable. He's got a great four seam. He's got a ton of arm side run. That it's just going to be really difficult against right-handed hitters, but it's going to be a stacked team, and they're going to come into PK Park, and they're not going to be afraid. They just went into Stillwater, which is a really hard place to play. Oklahoma State fans, as we know from football, are ravenous. They're just like that for baseball. They get out, they tailgate, they sit there all day, and they wait for their Cowboys to run onto the field. And Oral Roberts had no problem with that. They shut that venue down real fast, and they took over and swept the Stillwater Regional. So I don't think that, even though I think it'll be a great crowd at PK Park this weekend, I don't think they'll be intimidated at the slightest. They're gunning for, I want to say this is their first super regional or it would be their first College World Series appearance in program history. I don't know off the top of my head, but they're gunning for that, just like Oregon is gunning for their first since '54. I don't think they'll be intimidated. I think it'll be a really tough matchup for Oregon. But key pieces again. If I were to preview it, it's just a pitching staff like it was going into the Nashville Regional. Feel really confident about what Oregon can do offensively, even though it'll be against good pitchers. It's just what can Oregon's pitching staff do to alleviate some of the offensive threats that Oral Roberts has.
Yeah, I'll just be curious to see how does Oral Roberts handle the pressure of a 3-game series, because you're 2 wins away from getting to Omaha, and that just kind of creates, every game is bigger and bigger, and just the pressures of that, mounts. And these are 2 teams. They're certainly confident, but they weren't supposed to project it on paper to be here. And so who's the team that's going to be able to withstand the pressure and the anxiety of being 2 wins away, and who's the team that kind of cracks? We haven't really seen either team do it much this season. Oregon's like, look, I think the natural assumption here is, wow, Oregon should be favored, because like what you just said, for some of these other smaller teams not getting to host regionals because they're not in a Power 5 conference. But I think people are going to look at this and go, oh, Oral Roberts, they're in the Summit League. Oregon's in the Pac-12. It's at home for Oregon. They should be the the favored team. But it feels like, talking to you, Jared, like this could be a pretty even split game. Maybe 52-48 one direction. Or am I reading this wrong?
No, I think you're reading it right. I think Oregon should be favorited just because, or the favorite, excuse me, my grammar. They should be the ones who are favorited. Just because, it's at home. Oregon has played harder competition all season long, just on a continuous basis. Oral Roberts has a bunch of games against Power 5 opponents where they've done well. But I wouldn't take them too much. And I'm not saying that Oregon's going to go 0-2 in barbecue and just, their season's going to end just like that. But this is a good team. Oral Roberts is a good team. I just went through all the reasons why they're a good team. And again, they're going to show up to PK Park whenever they get here, probably on Wednesday. Start to practice, start to get used to the PK Park environment, start to take BP, realize that this is a very hitter-friendly environment, and start swinging. It's been a long time since Oregon has played at home. And not that that's going to be a big issue, because they practice here during the off days of the week before they go to Nashville, before they went to the Pac-12 championship tournament. It's going to be fine, but it's been a while since they've had a home crowd. And, if you're Oral Roberts, all the pressure is on Oregon. It's the same thing as, when it's a 14 or a 15 seed versus a 2 seed in the NCAA basketball tournament. The pressure is not on them. They're playing loose. They're playing great. They're going to start hitting some threes, and then they're going to start forcing whoever it is as the 2 seed to start to play defense, to say, hey, we're not just going to roll over. But I think Oral Roberts has even more confidence than that. And Oregon needs to exhibit their confidence. They need to continue to have that dog in them, for, again, lack of a better phrase. Because this is going to be a hard press series. There's going to be a lot of opportunities to score for both sides of the ball. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for big time pitching and big time moments. And this Oral Roberts team, I looked it up just a little bit ago. They have made the College World Series once in their program history, in 1978. So both teams are going to be, fighting for the same thing, to get back to that College World Series for the first time in a long time. And it's really, I'm very excited for this matchup. I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought there would be some type of NCAA selection bid for either DBU or Oregon for the regional host or the super regional host, but the fact that it's going to be in our backyard, so to say,
it's awesome.
With this talented of an ORU team coming in, it's going to be a lot of great baseball, and I'm excited for that.
Yeah, Jared will have full coverage of it on duckterritory.com. I highly encourage you guys to read his work. Very good stuff on everything Oregon baseball. We'll continue to do these podcasts. I hope, Jared, next Monday, Eric is on the show. Or actually, I won't be on vacation then, so I'm hosting the podcast, and we're talking Omaha, and we're talking about what's next for Oregon baseball. And because it's been a fun ride, Jared's covered it all, and he gets rewarded with a super regional in Eugene. And we'll see. We'll see where it goes next. But go to PK Park. Try to find Jared there. We will certainly continue to talk Oregon Duck baseball here on the Autzen Audibles podcast. And until the next one, you've been listening to the Autzen Audibles podcast.
Peace.